If you are an introvert who is serious about reaching your potential, then you sit up and listen when a world-class Formula One driver calls social media a quote-unquote waste of time and energy. This month, it was all over the news that British racing driver Lando Norris, who drives for McLaren Formula One, has stepped away from social media. Now, Formula One is obviously, even if you're not a fan, you appreciate that it is known for talent, precision, speed, and handling pressure. All really great qualities that we can hone in our lives and careers. So Lando stepped away from socials because he said he just doesn't enjoy it. He just doesn't feel the need to be on there, and he wants to focus on a better use of his time doing more productive activities. I want to talk about this in this episode and share with you how he did it, why he did it, and what you can learn from it as an ambitious introvert, which I suspect Lando Norris also is, just from his demeanour and the way he speaks in interviews. Now, the important key piece here is this wasn't some kind of burnout. He's done this as a strategic energy decision to help him jump from where he currently sits, number 2 in the world, to hopefully number 1 in the world by the end of the season. Stay tuned to find out how. Hi, I'm Emma-Louise, and welcome back to this solo episode of the Ambitious Introvert podcast, which, as you can probably tell from the intro, I am very, very passionate about. I love when there is something really timely and relevant that I can jump on and share with you guys. And the fact that this has been in the news this week of recording in late May is perfect. So, as I said, whether you're a Formula One fan or not, you understand the premise. World-class athletes driving world-class cars around very difficult racing circuits at very, very high speeds to try and come first. You get the idea. Now, it's often seen as, it's obviously a very masculine sport. It's seen as quite extroverted. There is a lot of pomp and ceremony around Formula One. There's a lot around the hospitality, around the celebrations, etc. But actually, it's a sport that is probably very well suited to introverts because, yes, you have team radio while you're driving, but you're driving alone. You are essentially, yes, part of a team, but as you're out there on the track, you are alone. So I wouldn't be surprised if quite a few of the drivers were actually introverts. So let's get into what Lando Norris said, what he's doing, how I believe it's going to help him, and how you can adopt some of the same things. So this is an absolute quiet power move because in Lando's own words, let's take it one by one. He said, social media is a time and energy drain. Therefore, something has happened here to make him realize that. He's had the self-awareness that when he's finished scrolling socials, he's thought, that was a waste of time, or, oh, I just don't feel that great now. And that is the key to making any kind of change. Now, remember, a lot of people will use social media for hours each day and feel amazing because they're extroverts. They're getting all those dopamine hits and it's not draining and flooding their system the way it does for introverts. They are loving all of the stimulus. They're loving connecting with hosts and hosts of people in a short space of time. It's giving them life. It's doing the opposite of what it's doing to us. So what I think is really powerful about this is that Lando, as, number 2 driver in the world at the moment, is someone that is expected in this day and age to have a platform. We expect our athletes to also be celebrities, to be connecting with people. In fact, he has almost 10 million followers on Instagram. He has a huge platform. And also to remember that a high amount of his income will come from sponsorships. Many, many Formula One drivers get paid a lot of money to sponsor brands. And of course, tied into that will be them sharing that on their social media. So him actually stepping away from it is really quite a big deal. The second thing he said is that he doesn't find it interesting. Now, as someone that has to sit in that car and be fully switched on and focused for a couple of hours for each race, this makes a lot of sense to me. As a former air traffic controller, I know how important it is to prime your brain, to keep your brain switched on and working at the times that it needs to be in full concentration mode. And the more mindless activities you partake in, the harder that's going to be. So I would imagine he felt mentally disengaged from it, found himself scrolling, just going, this isn't interesting me. Like, why am I even doing it? So that's another key piece in your own use. Are you finding it interesting, or are you just finding it a waste of time and energy? And lastly, he said he wants to prioritize, and I'm going to slightly change his words here, prioritize what actually fuels him. He said things that are productive, that he enjoys. I would take that as things that actually give him energy. And the fact that he admitted he came off socials about a month ago, I think it was, and he's performed incredibly well since then, I'm sure is no accident. So the link here, and part of the reason that I strongly believe that Lando Norris is an ambitious introvert and probably a sensitive introvert, like I say, based on his persona, based on how he acts when he's interviewed, etc., is this idea of, firstly, not needing external validation. He doesn't care if people think, oh, he should be on socials, or what's he doing? Because he's realized that it's better for him and it's going to help him achieve his goal by not being on there. So he's okay with that. And secondly, which we'll talk about in the activities that he's chosen to replace it with in a little while, he's really valuing depth and presence and also intentionality, because he hasn't just stopped scrolling and replaced it with, emotional eating on the sofa or binging Netflix. When he talks about the things that he has replaced it with, it makes a lot of sense as to why they are so intentional. So this decision to opt out is really powerful and really rare in public figures, especially those very, very high visibility and with sponsorship deals. So I think that's something important to remember. This probably wasn't an easy decision, but he probably knew that for his performance and for his goals, it was absolutely the best. Now, I appreciate that, well, maybe some of you, but not all of you are, driving billion-dollar cars and, trying to win Formula One races, but you are managing your energy every day in high-stakes roles. And whether that is in your career, in your business, within your family, you are having to do that. And social media can really subtly and insidiously get in and have a negative effect. It destroys our focus. It creates unnecessary comparison, even if we're not consciously aware of it. It interrupts our recovery time because we're switching our brain back into being on and alert, looking, scanning, which is not the ideal rest and digest. And it also feeds our mental clutter because it's adding things in that we didn't really ask to see. You never know what you're going to get. If you open up Facebook or Instagram to scroll, you can see anything from anyone at any time, and you have lost control over your energy. This really compounds over time for introverts, and it can lead to a really chronic sense of depletion. I've just wrapped up working with a client who, when we started working together, she took her energy audit questionnaire, which I do with all private clients. And social media usage is one of the sections. There's a lot of questions about it to help me understand their attitude and how much time and energy they spend on socials. And when we had our first call, and I spent a couple of hours going through her questionnaire and making sure I was fully aware of everything. And I said, what surprised you when you filled out the questionnaire? And she said, I thought I spent 15 minutes a day on social media. She said, but going through and counting it up and checking, on my phone and, the screen time, she said, it's almost 2 hours. And she said, I was horrified. She said, I would truly, truly believed that I spent 15 minutes. So then we worked on a plan to help her reduce to 15 minutes because that's what felt good to her. She still enjoyed using it. This isn't necessarily about going cold turkey just because Lando Norris has. Maybe his stakes are a little higher, but it's about using it with intentionality and using it within your values. And to her, 2 hours a day was not within her values because there were many things that she was bringing to the coaching that she wanted to achieve that she couldn't find time for, or that she wasn't prioritizing. And as soon as she saw that, she was like, I can easily get these things done if I reduce social media. So we worked on a plan to do that. And in fact, when she finished and I asked her what the most powerful thing about our work together, that is what she said. She said, it's the simple shifts. It was like, moving the Facebook icon on my phone so I didn't automatically go for it on autopilot and having to think about, do I actually want to open it right now? Those kind of things made the biggest difference. So this is, as I've just alluded to, this isn't just about removing something. It's not about saying, I'm not going to do that anymore. It's about saying, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I'm going to do this instead because when we have that purpose or that tie back to our goals or our values, it makes it so much easier. So in Lando's case, 3 things that he talked about that he's chosen to replace social media with. 1 is golf. So I'm guessing he enjoys golf. And this makes a lot of sense in what he's trying to achieve in his racing career too, because golf is also competitive. It's also going to keep him mentally engaged, keeping score, and it's going to keep him physically engaged, but in a very, very different way. So he'll be playing with at least one other person. He will be outdoors in nature. He will be taking his time to consider his shots, his clubs, anything else. He's not using that, 10th of a second instinct that he's in a car. He's not on his own. He's not, inside this tiny, tiny cockpit. It's all very different, but it's helping him to flex different muscles, as it were, different competitive muscles, because being competitive is still going to be important to him outside of the car, but doing it in a different way is really, really going to help his mindset. So golf, like I say, being outdoors as well, being in nature, all of those things, I would imagine it is physical enough and competitive enough to keep him interested, but also relaxing enough that it can be great downtime compared to work. Secondly, he has upped his training. Now, we all know that physical discipline helps to support performance. There's no surprise there. Formula One drivers are incredibly fit. Their bodies have to withstand so much pressure in the car, so many Gs, etc., all the turns. So the fact that he has dedicated some of that time to extra training, I would think is going to put him way ahead of where he has been performing, and he will see a noticeable difference. It's the same thing with us. If we exercise twice a week and we decide to up it to 3 or 4 times a week, we're going to see a big difference. If you do 10,000 steps a day and you decide to up it to 12,000, over time, you will notice a difference in how you feel. So again, he's chosen something that is productive because it's helping him get towards his goals. And lastly, he said time with friends. Instead of scrolling social media, he's been hanging out with friends, which I could not love more, because real connection is not found on social media. People get dopamine hits quite often from social media, so it makes them feel good. And in their rational brain, it makes them feel connected to the people on there. This is why people have parasocial relationships, right? They feel like they know influencers. But that connection isn't real. It's just an electronic connection. When we are talking to friends, whether that's in person or having a phone call or a Zoom call with someone one-on-one, or in a group of people that we really care about, that gives us oxytocin, which is the love hormone. It makes us feel, warm and fuzzy and all of those things, which is very, very different to dopamine. So again, I do believe Lando is probably an introvert, so this makes a lot of sense. That depth of connection is going to be so much more rewarding to him than scrolling Instagram. So this isn't about quitting technology or never picking your phone up or disconnecting for the sake of it. It's about reconnecting with what actually matters to you. And rather than this low return activity of social media, is thinking about what would be a high return habit instead. And it's not all about work and doing more. Yes, he's added training in, so there's going to be more physical things. But the other things that he's added in, I think I saw he mentioned reading also. These things that have been added in are pleasurable. So, and even more so than social media. So this is where I want you to really take some time and think about your own social media usage. Even if, like my former client, you're going, this isn't for me. I don't use it very often. Like 15 minutes a day maximum. I would still highly, highly recommend that you just take 5 minutes and, listen to this and maybe make some notes and see how you feel at the end of it and see if you want to change anything. And if you don't and you're happy with your social media usage, that is fantastic. But remember that social media is designed by literally the smartest brains in the world. And they want to keep you on there for as long as possible so that they can charge advertisers more to show you their adverts. Now, that is the society we live in. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that is what happens. No social media platform wants you to leave the platform. That's why they developed the infinite scroll, because if any of you remember, you used to get to the end on Facebook, you were caught up, you'd seen everything. That doesn't happen now. You can keep going and going and going and going and going, and they will always find things to show you. So this is why it's so important for us to self-audit, or if clients are working with me, to do an audit together, to really understand our usage and see if it does align with what feels good to us. So the first question I would say to ask is, think about your social media. Think about how you feel when you've finished. Do you feel energized or do you feel drained? And that might be a really hard question to answer, because for many people, social media is just embedded in the daily fabric of our lives. You might be, pulling it out when you're, in a queue, in a line, in a store. You might just, do it while you're waiting for the kettle to boil. You might scroll while you're watching Netflix in the evening or whatever. You might be doing it at times that you're not really paying attention. It's this automatic habit. But really try to think about it. Really try to notice when you've finished, to sit just for 10 seconds and think, how do I feel? Do I feel energized or do I feel drained? And then think about, which ties in with that, are you using it with intention or is it using you? Are you doing it because it's a habit? Are you doing it because that icon has been in the same place on your phone for 3 years and your thumb just goes there because you have a neural pathway that when you see your phone, you flick Instagram or you flick Facebook? Are you using it with intention? Are you going, right, I am going to spend this much time a day maximum on social media because I've got other things that are more important to me? Are you saying, I'm not going to use social media around my partner. I'm not going to use it around my kids. I'm not going to use it in the bedroom. I'm only going to use it in certain areas of the house or at certain times of day. Those things can all be really, really helpful in us creating these boundaries where, like I say, it's not about never doing something, but it's about doing it in a way that works for us and works for our energy. And so I'm going to leave you with 3 Lando-inspired swaps that you could make if this has piqued your interest and you think, do you know what? I would really love to at least look at reducing my social media and to see what else I could put in there instead and to see how I feel, even if you commit to doing it for 2 weeks and then see if you feel any different at the end of it. So number 1 is, if you're going to scroll for 15 minutes, exercise for 15 minutes, even if it's just going for a walk, even if it's tidying the house, but doing so like in a crazy fast way because you want to burn some calories. Even if it is doing some stretching, like there are so many things that you could effectively do in 15 minutes a day that are going to have a massive impact on your body. So instead of 15 minutes of scrolling, try 15 minutes of moving. Number 2, instead of going down an Instagram rabbit hole and, like we say, that infinite scroll that just keeps going and going, think instead, right now, I'm not going to go on Instagram. I'm going to read 1 chapter of a book, and choose a book that you either really love or is, really interesting to you, or is going to help you towards your goal. If you're building a business, choose a business book. If you are looking to work on your mindset, choose a, book about positivity, whatever the thing is, and just read a chapter of that when you find yourself being pulled towards social media. And then instead of swiping and just mindlessly opening, like I say, which it's designed to make us do, there's no shame around it, but we have to put the mechanisms in place to stop that. So shuffle your apps, hide your apps on a different screen in a different position. You will be amazed how often you go to open them and go, oh, it's not there anymore, because those neural pathways are strong and you need to create new ones that when you get your thumb out, you do something else instead. So for this one, scramble your apps. And then when you find yourself going to hit it, I want you to take 5 minutes and just journal. Journal about your next goal. Journal about something you're grateful for. Journal about something you want to achieve. Journal about how you want to feel today. Like, there are so many things, and writing is so cathartic, and it really helps us to reconnect with ourselves. So those are my 3 tips that I really think will make a huge difference. I am not anti-social media, but I am anti-mindless social media, because I believe that to reach our potential, which for Lando Norris is getting from number 2 in the world to number 1 in the world, so big potential. But for any of us to reach our potential, we can't be mindlessly doing things that drain our time and energy. It's not possible. To get the results that we want, we need to make intentional changes. And it's not a bad thing, and it's not discipline, and we're not missing out, because we're choosing for our future. So I think Lando's social media exit is a perfect case study for aligned performance in protecting his energy. And as I say, this is why I do energy audits with all of my private clients when we start working together, because we find things like social media as huge leaks that they can very easily and quickly rectify and have a massive difference in their energy and their performance. So I would love to know, which of the 3 swaps are you going to try? I would love to hear from you on Instagram at Emma-Louise, or you can always email me and let me know, hello@theambitiousintrovert.com. But even in just 2 weeks, even if you just did 1 shift with your socials, I believe you'll see a massive, massive impact in your energy and your performance, and you'll be off to a flying start. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. I hope that you're feeling expanded to what's possible for you, motivated to take action, and inspired about how you can start to own your energy. I share even more tools and resources on my Introverts Only email newsletter. By signing up, you not only get early access to the Ambitious Introvert products and services, but you also get brand new podcast episodes delivered straight to your inbox every Monday, meaning you'll never miss your weekly dose of introvert-friendly inspiration. Sign up now at theambitiousintrovert.com/newsletter, or click the link in the show notes. See you next week.